September 11th, a sunny day across the country soon turned into a tragic event to be remembered through the ages. It marks the day our nation was attacked, forever changing the United States. Although there are many aspects pertaining to 9/11, I decided to focus on one outlook, the American psyche. In other words, how Americans' mindset changed and what we did because of said mindset. An all-out fight on terrorism struck, where George W. Bush declared war on terrorism September 20th, 2001, according to a documented press conference on YouTube.
I want you all to know that America today is on bended knee in prayer for the people whose lives were lost here, for the workers who work here, for the families who mourn. This nation stands with the good people of New York City and New Jersey and Connecticut.
I was up there trying to say something about how we cared about them, and the country was supporting them, and guy kept screaming, "I can't hear you, I can't hear you." And I yelled back through the megaphone, "I hear you, the world hears you, and the people who did this will soon hear from us."
I can hear you, the rest of the world hears you, and the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Americans all over were afraid, whether it was from just seeing the news or actually being close to the Twin Towers. No one knew what would happen next. Who or why did this happen? The human nature is to find a reason for why this or that happened. Some people floated to the idea that maybe we deserved this, like somehow it was our fault. So many people reacted differently to the events of 9/11. To be blunt, we were all terrified of what might come. Some people donated blood, hung up flags, mourned. We all reacted differently, but as a nation, we were shocked. 9/11 was a turning point in our history. It is such a broad topic because so many events happened, so many laws were passed.
September the 11th was a monumental day in our nation's history. It was a significant day, and it was obviously, it changed my presidency. I went from being a president that was primarily focused on domestic issues to a wartime president. Something I never anticipated, nor something I ever wanted to be.
In all honesty, no one expected the attack, not even him. In a study at NC Research Triangle Institute, they found that 11% of people in metropolitan New York suffered PTSD, nightmares, flashbacks, and other forms of anxiety. Yale Danieli, Ph.D., a New York City clinical psychologist and founding director of the International Society for Traumatic Stress Studies, proclaimed the following. For many, the way they live and the decisions they make in their day-to-day life are still being influenced by 9/11. It affects what they tell and how they raise their children, where they send them to school, their relationship to their work, and whether they want to remain in a job that's in a high-rise building, especially downtown, says Danieli. People are also making these decisions in a poor economic atmosphere, so even if they may want to leave their jobs, they're afraid they may not find another one. Danieli's statement was found at WebMD, an article about post-9/11. Although people were afraid of the physical aspects, like high-rise buildings and such, Americans held a strong distrust towards Muslims post-9/11. Huffington Post claimed a spike in hate crimes, going from 28 a year all the way to 481 Islamophobic-related attacks the year after 9/11. Soon enough, Guantanamo Bay was introduced, people were screened, history was rifled through, America wanted answers. J. Wells Dixon, an attorney for detainees in Guantanamo Bay, proclaimed the following, as said by NBC News. How did it happen? When you're so afraid of something or somebody that you don't understand, there's a tendency to view that person as something other than a fellow human being. America was really intent on answer, no matter how or where they got them. They felt threatened by the silent attackers known as terrorists.
In 2001, I was 31 years old. I was actually in college, and I'll never forget. I've never walked out into a hallway in any school that's full of students and nobody was moving. Everybody was standing around the few TVs we had at that time. So nobody was odd. So when I could get close, there were crowds around the TV, and to see what was happening, nobody was speaking like, oh, did you hear this? All the information was coming from the TV. And I think it was so hard to digest, so to say, that you almost were scared to the point where you didn't want to talk to anybody. You, dare I say, snuck in, and everybody was told you need to leave and get back to your houses as safely as you can. My reaction when the second plane hit was clear that it was sabotage, that it was not something that was accidental from air traffic control, or that it was just a coincidence that two planes had been misdirected. That just doesn't make logical sense, so that I knew that they had been hijacked. And 5, is it just 2? Did they get 20? And it really upset me. It still hurts me. I mean, I remember going home and realizing that I was going to be safe, and that all the flights were shut down so that there was going to be no other attacks. However, I remember taking a black and white TV down to my porch, and I cried for hours. I couldn't stop crying because it was just so awful to me that all those innocent people died. Changed the world forever, not for the better, but I've come to grips with it now. It's still painful to think about it and all those innocent people, but I truly believe that something that catastrophic has a very, very slim to none chance of happening again.
Well, thank you so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. And I know this is a hard topic, but I really do appreciate you talking about this with me. It's such an early time in the morning. And yeah, thank you.
No problem. It's the least I could do.
Many people can recall the events of 9/11. It is such a widely known day to America. Over 3,000 people died. All those people had families who may be still mourning over their losses. Even though my mom was not near New York at the time, the tragedy still affected her deeply. My mom remembers taking my sister to school and watching the news. My dad was at work. She was all alone at home when the attacks took place. She recalls worrying about Macy and Kevin and herself. My mom had no idea what could happen next. Seeing all those disturbing images flick across the TV screen was really tough. Innocent people barreling through the streets while rescue workers rushed to the scene. At this point, she did not feel comfortable elaborating. Even someone miles and miles away struggles with the events of 9/11. While all this took place, I had an uncle in the military. My uncle remembers getting ready to fight, ready for war. He did not get home until the next day, where he recalls actually seeing the true horrors of September 11th. My dad, much like other adults, was at work. He remembers checking up on my mom and sister, as well as trying to keep the workplace under control. Fear sunk into the hearts of everyone, no matter who or where you were. A sunny day turned horrific. September 11th, 2001 is part of our history. It shaped this country. Yes, it was a terrible loss for America, but some good did come out of it. America is now more aware of terrorism. Our war has led to the death of Osama bin Laden, a terrorist icon. The United States had this palpable bloodlust to conquer, to come together and salvage from the wreckage. As a whole, we understand that there is true evil in this world. There is anger and hate, fear and passion, but as a whole, America is willing to fight, to give blood to help the fallen, to take down enemies, to be strong. 9/11 is marked as the day we lost lives, but it is also marked as the day we began a forever fight. The day we really suffered, yet we suffered as a country together. As a country, we fought, and we will continue to do so for years to come.